Have you ever wondered why Roman Abramovich chose Chelsea of all clubs to buy? We all know Arsenal were valued too highly for the oligarch, and he was interested in a London-based club. But why Chelsea, out of the myriad of other London clubs? Long before the takeovers of Roman Abramovich or Todd Bowley, another Chelsea takeover would create an arguably even bigger shift in the club's fortunes. In 1982, businessman and former Leeds owner Ken Bates acquired the club for £1. The price tag might seem like a bargain to many, especially knowing the monster Chelsea are today, but taking a look at all the angles back then, the price will actually seem exorbitant. All exaggerations aside, the club was in a very dire situation, as a redevelopment of the stadium had left the club in a horrible financial situation. Forced to sell key players to keep afloat, the success and stability of previous decades was replaced with relegation and the very real danger of becoming homeless. Stamford Bridge was owned by a holding company, which was separate from the club's identity. Controversially, Bates only decided to buy the club and not the stadium. The shares in the freehold that owned the stadium were sold to Marler Estates, a property development company. The fortunes of the team were about to change against the backdrop of Bates' legal battles with Marler Estates under the tutelage of manager John Neal. He managed to rebuild a squad that had come close to relegation to the 3rd division with a budget of under £500,000. At the end of the 1984 season, the team had the second league title safely tucked away in their trophy cabinet, and the next season Chelsea were battling for the European football spots, but could not go all the way, finishing 6th. The prospect of European football had been slashed for all English clubs due to the Heysel disaster, and the club had not escaped England's hooliganism landscape, so owner Ken Bates resorted to installing an electric fence to prevent pitch invasions, an idea which some say he got from a similar setup he had on his cattle ranch. London City Council, however, refused to supply electricity for the fence due to health and safety concerns, prompting it to be demolished a few months later. With the 80s coming to a close, Chelsea had experienced a failed title charge and another promotion and relegation since the electric fence incident. The first 5 years of the 90s were occasionally spent trying to avoid relegation, with their fortunes ebbing and flowing. However, 2 landmark years would bring about developments that would propel the club to the shop windows where potential buyers could see them. In 1992, Chelsea were one of the breakaway clubs that decided to form the Premier League. The same year, with fortune smiling upon them, Bates managed to buy back the ground from the property developers who took a big hit during a market crash in the previous years. At the end of the 92-93 season, Chelsea picked Glenn Hoddle, a very young manager by the standards of the time, to lead the team after finishing 11th. Hoddle would ultimately kickstart a new age at the club, with his landmark signings, the first ones coming in 1995. These signings were that of Ruud Gullit on a free and Mark Hughes for £1.5 million from Manchester United. These transfers were made possible by Bates and director Matthew Harding starting to make funds available for the team. The image of the Chelsea pensioner, which the club replaced with the rampant lion in the 50s, was seemingly back, as Gullit was 33 and Hughes was 1 year his junior. With the addition of Don Petrescu, Mark Hughes' puzzle was complete and the team started picking up form, ending the 95-96 season in 11th, a season in which they also reached the FA Cup semi-final. Hughes would leave at the end of the season to take up the role of England manager in a move that would irreparably damage his career. In his stead, Ruud Gullit was appointed player manager for the next season, and a flurry of new additions joined the club, amongst them superstars Gianfranco Zola and Gianluca Vialli, both over 30. Gullit, despite his age, was runner-up for Player of the Year award in the previous season, and overall the so-called Foreign Revolution was taking over the Premier League. Gullit's season as manager was very successful, ending Chelsea's 26-year wait for a major trophy, winning the FA Cup. With Vialli and especially Zola adding much-needed flair to Chelsea's team, the League Cup and the European Cup Winners Cup followed next season. However, with the club in the semi-finals of both competitions, Gullit was sacked amidst a contract dispute. Once again, a player-manager was the solution the club preferred, with Vialli taking over the role. His tenure began in a highly successful manner, winning the 2 previously mentioned cups and moving on to defeat Real Madrid in the European Super Cup. The next few years saw Chelsea reach the quarter-finals of the Champions League and win the FA Cup again under Vialli, who became Chelsea's most successful manager up until that point. 2 more veterans were recruited to the squad in the form of World Cup winners Marcel Desailly and Didier Deschamps. In one of the hallmarks of the transition from the old English Division 1 towards the promised land of the Premier League, Chelsea were the first English side to field a starting 11 completely made up of non-English players. By September 2000, Vialli had been dismissed as manager after a poor run of form, and Claudio Ranieri took over the squad. The recent years saw Chelsea transformed from an average London side with hooligan issues to an exciting cosmopolitan side that challenged the top four and played European football. Ranieri guided the club to 2 sixth-place finishes before rumours started to spring up that the club was in financial trouble. As a result, the 02-03 season was expected to be thoroughly unsuccessful, but the side managed to clinch Champions League football in front of Liverpool on the last day of the season. At the beginning of the 03-04 season, Chelsea was standing in front of the world as a club from a city that was to enter a new era of prosperity and globalization, with modern landmarks such as the Millennium Dome, London Eye, and the Millennium Bridge having recently been constructed. They were symbolic, as other clubs in the country, of the increased multiculturalism in England and especially London. All these factors combined, in my opinion at least, placed Chelsea in a Goldilocks zone of English clubs. Based in the capital and successful enough to pique interest, but not overly successful as to be valued at an exorbitant price like Arsenal, Chelsea were ultimately primed for the takeover that happened. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you like this video and this kind of content, consider liking and subscribing to my channel, and let me know in the comments if you have any other good video ideas for me.